Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. Today's Thursday, November 7th, and I am your host, Josh Newberg. And guess what? We got the best recruiting insider in the country, Steve Wiltfong. He's on the show, and we're going to hit on the biggest developments that didn't only happen this week, but we are anticipating some major developments heading into a busy weekend. So sit back for the next 20 to 30 minutes and get caught up on all things recruiting. All right, let's bring in the great Steve Wiltfong. And Steve, we're going to start this thing off by, guess what? We're talking QB dominoes, because there are nearly every single quarterback in the top 20 is committed, minus Carter Smith. But that doesn't mean that there won't be some drama at the position as signing day gets closer. So before we get into it, guys, do me a favor, smash that subscribe button. We're on here talking recruiting all year round. We want you to be a part of it. Hit subscribe. All right. So, Steve, let's start at the top, because if the biggest domino falls from the top, that creates the biggest ripple effect. So let's talk about Bryce Underwood, committed to LSU, obviously flirting with Michigan. What do you think the chances are that this domino falls?
Well, Bryce Underwood will be back at LSU this weekend for his official visit, flanked by a lot of family. He's got a huge playoff game on Friday night against Saline High as Bryce Underwood looks to get back to a state championship game for a fourth consecutive year. He's won 2 of them, and then he'll get back to LSU this weekend. Look, everything's been status quo with the Tigers. Offensive coordinator Joe Sloan, his lead recruiter, was at his game this past Friday. Regular communication with the staff, regular communication with his future teammates, the commits. Loves LSU. Family's excited to get back down to Baton Rouge to check out this big game against Alabama. But I do think that the talks with Michigan have intensified over the last month. I think that there's been some regular communication with Sharon Moore and his staff. The Wolverines are trying to make a final push for Bryce Underwood here at the end of the cycle. We'll see what all that entails in the future. But right now, I like where LSU stands to hold on to Bryce Underwood.
Yeah, I like where LSU stands as well. But if something were to go down, we know LSU's not just going to sit there and take on signing day without a quarterback. So just got to watch where these dominoes fall. All right, next up is Matt Zollers. He's the number 5 ranked quarterback in the country. He committed to Mizzou over Penn State and Georgia. Been solidly committed to Mizzou, but popped up at Penn State this weekend. What are you hearing there?
Pretty similar deal. I think that Matt Zollers is locked in with Missouri, going to be back there to visit this weekend. He said that he just wanted to go to Penn State for a big game to watch them play Ohio State and see that atmosphere. Anytime a blue chip quarterback takes a visit, though, particularly this late in the cycle, my antenna does go up. And I do think that Penn State would like to make a late run at Matt Zollers. But right now, from his mouth, it sounds like he's good to go, and we'll stick with Mizzou.
Yeah. So, okay. So number 1 and number 5 sound solid. Now let's slide down to number 7. Julian Lewis, committed to USC. Steve, there's been rumors he's going to be at Indiana. He's not going to be at Indiana. We know he showed up at Colorado, so we know they're in play. But what's going on right now with number 7 ranked quarterback Julian Lewis committed to USC?
Well, Julian Lewis has been committed to USC since 2023, but he's kept a lot of schools warm since he gave Lincoln Riley his verbal. Programs like Auburn and Georgia and Alabama no longer in play. Colorado and Indiana are still 2 schools that him and his family have a lot of dialogue with. And as you said, he was at Colorado this fall. He was there for the win over Cincinnati that clinched the postseason for Colorado. They had their sights set on much more than that. And he was there on campus for a 4th time this calendar year, soaking up that atmosphere. You talk to various people about Julian Lewis and his recruitment, you get a lot of different answers on if he will stick or if he'll flip. I'm still in the camp of I think he'll stick. My confidence isn't all that high. He's been to USC twice this year. Loves Lincoln Riley, loves that he's a quarterback's coach, the offensive coordinator, and the head coach. Loves the opportunity to be out in LA and what that could mean from a NIL standpoint, and then certainly just Lincoln Riley's track record of offense and quarterback. I think those are all the reasons why he's in the fold. But Colorado, chance to start day one, I think is very exciting. To be part of a Deion Sanders program, the microscope that comes with that and the opportunity that comes with that's also exciting. Indiana, they tried to get him up last minute for the Nebraska game, wasn't able to get it done. him. The Michigan game was on the calendar for a long time. Not sure he's expected in Bloomington any longer this week. So, but the relationship with Tino Sunseri is second to none in his process. I'm in the stick camp for Julian Lewis to USC right now, Josh, but nothing would surprise me late in the cycle with him.
So at this point, if and when he does not show at Bloomington this Saturday, do we take Indiana off the board for Julian Lewis at that point with less than a month to go to signing day?
Well, he's been there twice. Has a regular relationship with him. I don't know. With Julian Lewis, things have just seemed fluid behind the scenes with him, with some of the conversations that him and his families have with staffs. I don't know if Indiana has all the resources to win a Julian Lewis recruitment,
Right.
So maybe they do. But
maybe that's why he's not showing up on campus. Maybe they don't.
Well, that's your speculation, not mine.
All right, now let's move on to the number 12 ranked quarterback in the country, Jaron Sagapolutele, and he is committed to Cal. But there's been some changes in his recruitment, mainly Oregon, but most recently Georgia has also entered the picture. What are you hearing on Jaron Sagapolutele?
Well, there's 3 schools still in the picture for Jaron. He's committed to Cal, his first love. That was a program that invested in him and recruited him before the other 2 finalists here, and I think that means something to him. But Oregon coming into the picture here in the fall was huge for him with their track record with Hawaii quarterbacks. Marcus Mariota winning the Heisman Trophy there. He has such a huge presence in Eugene, and now currently Dylan Gabriel. They got a chance to meet at the Elite 11 finals this summer in Los Angeles, reconnected on his recent visit. He was there for the win over Illinois. Oregon's offense, the style of play, those are all things that are exciting for Jaron. I think that they're in a really good spot for him right now. And then he's tentatively scheduled to visit Georgia for the Tennessee game. Bulldogs trying to make a run here as they try to add competition to their quarterback room moving forward. I like how it's setting up for Oregon right now, but Cal battling to keep them in the fold, and Georgia with a big opportunity maybe coming later this month.
All right. Now, there's rumors coming out of Tallahassee that Tramel Jones, who's been committed to the Noles for several months now, is maybe looking around. And one of the programs he could be looking at is the Florida Gators. It seemed like he kind of shut the door to that when he put out a tweet in September. But as we get closer to signing day, are you hearing anything on Tramel Jones out of Jacksonville, Florida?
Yeah, I like the way it's trending for Florida right now for Tramel Jones. He was back in Tallahassee over the weekend helping recruit the official visitors like Javon Boggs. I think he's got a lot of love for the Seminoles, but there's a lot of buzz around Florida right now to ultimately flip him. And there's a buzz piece on the On3 website right now where I talk quarterback dominoes, and I like the way it's setting up for Florida right now.
All right, let's talk about the only uncommitted quarterback in the top 20. That's Carter Smith, and he was committed to Michigan as of last week. He reopened that commitment. Penn State's been mentioned, but who else is recruiting Carter Smith right now?
Well, slated to take an official visit to Wisconsin next weekend. You like the way it's kind of setting up for Phil Longo, Luke Fickell, and the Badgers. But if Tramel Jones does flip to Florida, I think Florida State goes all in on Carter Smith, and they become a program to watch. There's a few other programs that have been reaching out, UCF, Oregon, Louisville, to name a few of those. But Wisconsin's got an official visit on the itinerary, and if Florida State needs to go back into the quarterback market, they'll be a team to watch.
Yeah, that could make sense because Carter Smith is from Naples, Florida. Of course, he is committed to Michigan, so why would he be afraid of committing to Wisconsin? But if he wants to stay in state, Florida State could be an option for him. So we'll see how these QB dominoes shake out. But you guys talk to Steve and I right now. Comment section below. How do you guys see with the QB dominoes working out? Any major flips down the stretch? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, let's head out to Baton Rouge because there is a big recruiting weekend at LSU as Bama comes to town. Now, the foundation of LSU's class should be on campus for this one. A lot of big-time visitors, including number 1 overall Bryce Underwood. Steve, do you think there's any chance coming out of this weekend LSU, Joe Sloan, Brian Kelly can get Bryce Underwood to make some sort of statement that he is locked into LSU?
Sure. I mean, he's going to be back on campus. There's going to be a ton of excitement. He's going to be back around all his future teammates, the commits, get back around Coach Sloan and the staff. And I think things have remained relatively status quo with him and LSU. The communication is regular. The text with his future teammates is regular. He's going to have a lot of family with him on this official visit to LSU. It's going to be a big game, a night game in Death Valley inside Tiger Stadium. Many think that there is no atmosphere that can match that. It goes up another level when Alabama's in town for the night game. So it's going to be a special weekend and a special experience. So we'll see. But there's dialogue with the Underwood camp in Michigan that has continued, and they're certainly not going to go away until they're told to. And so Michigan trying to make a final push. But I like where LSU's still at with Bryce Underwood, been committed since January, and not much has changed.
Yeah, getting them on campus this weekend is going to be huge, especially with all the Michigan momentum, rumors swirling. Him being back in Baton Rouge this year is going to send a statement. Speaking of back in Baton Rouge, Jakeem Stewart. Now, we think that Ohio State and Oregon are in a really good spot with him, but what do you make of this weekend's official visit for Jakeem Stewart?
Well, I think it's just an opportunity to get back to a place he's comfortable. He knows that coaching staff well. Coach Baker, he sat and talked about his fit in his defense. Coach Davis, he's been coached by him in camp, loves the way he develops his players at the point of attack. This is a visit, I think, where LSU can remind Jakeem Stewart, hey, these are the benefits of being a local blue chipper that comes to LSU. I expect him to meet with several high-profile Louisiana people, high-profile LSU people on this visit, and they'll be unified in just how big it could be for him and his brand to stay home and play his college football at LSU when you compare it to Oregon, Ohio State, and USC, the other finalists.
All right. Another big name on campus is DJ Pickett. Over the summer, he made his decision right here on the On3 Recruits channel to commit to LSU. Now, since then, Miami's picked up a little steam with him. Are there any other programs that are knocking on the door for DJ Pickett, or does LSU really just have to battle Miami down the stretch here?
Well, his dad, Damian, told me earlier this week that his son's locked in with LSU and been locked in since the summer. He's back on campus for a second game this fall, this weekend, with plans of getting back for the Oklahoma game over Thanksgiving weekend, which would be a few days before he signs and enrolls early with LSU. Now, certainly there's still communication with Miami. Maybe Miami can get him back for the Wake Forest game on the 24th, but this is setting up very nicely for LSU, and Pickett has not wavered in his commitment to the Tigers, same as Underwood.
Yeah, we saw DJ Pickett make 2 early visits to watch the Canes, and it seemed like, oh boy, he might see him 4 or 5 times this season, but it kind of slowed down since then, and LSU kind of got back in control of this recruitment. It feels
the SEC, I think the SEC is a big draw for LSU. I mean, obviously he's got the great relationship with Corey Raymond, but one thing his dad mentioned yesterday was just the competition level of the SEC, getting to play against great players week in and week out. That was another reason why he ultimately chose the Tigers. Now, I think you and I, we talked about it on a lot of whip-arounds leading up to his decision, and LSU was the team to beat for much of his process in the spring and summer. Oregon made it interesting, but he ended up committing to the school that I think led for much of his process. Now, Miami, if they had a great season, could they make some waves in this recruitment? Well, they're having a great season. Mario Cristobal hasn't relented in his push for DJ Pickett, but his dad said this has been done since the summer. He's preparing to enroll early, compete, and get in there and be on that SEC stage.
All right, let's talk about another flip target. This one has quietly kind of flown under the radar. Anquan Fagans, he made his decision right here on the On3 Recruits channel. He committed to Auburn, and since then he's made a couple trips to LSU. He's expected back this weekend. Steve, is this flip coming into focus for LSU? Hey, Inside Scoop fans and college football recruiting nuts. It's time to upgrade your audio game. You may have a pair of headphones you like, but the battery life, it's too short, or they just don't stay in your ears, or you don't want to spend hundreds of dollars every time you lose an earbud. Enter JLab. JLab is creating headphones, earbuds, and work accessories designed for everyday lifestyle. You guys know the best of the best are wearing them, from Travis Hunter to Ohio State's Will Howard to Quinshon Judkins. So for travel, here's what we recommend. The J-Bud Luxe over-ear headphones. If you're working out, get the J-Lab J-Buds Sport ANC4, offering a secure fit and a super long battery life for those tough workouts. Discover your perfect pair of headphones. Look for the J-Lab Blue Box at retailers everywhere or visit jlab.com.
Well, I talked to his dad this week, Antoine, and he made it clear that LSU is the biggest threat to Auburn. You still have Georgia, Alabama, UCF, some other schools that have been trying to make a late run, but he's committed to Auburn, loves the potential of that program moving forward, a top 10 class. He's a key part of it. They recruited a top 10 class last year. They have their quarterback, Deuce Knight. There's a lot of excitement around the future of Auburn football, but this will be his second game visit at LSU. He was at the Ole Miss game, another primetime victory over a top-rated opponent in Ole Miss. So he's seen Death Valley at its best, and his dad indicated, he's like, look, he's one of the people telling me there's not a place like LSU, particularly a night game. It's special. They love the people at LSU, and they're out taking these final visits. He was at Alabama to dot I's, cross T's, make sure Auburn was the right decision. And between Corey Raymond, the comfort level with the coaching staff, being on campus, he was also at the big recruiting splash party that LSU had, the Bayou Splash at the end of summer. They're in this one. We'll see if they can turn it on its heels with another great visit this weekend.
All right. There's also going to be some elite 2026 names on campus. Steve, who you tracking?
Well, I think you start with the number one player in the state, Lamar Brown, offensive lineman, defensive lineman, local kid that recently named Texas A&M his leader. Now, the on-3 RPM has not indicated that true, even though he said that. My pick is still on LSU, but you're obviously not sleeping on the Aggies for Lamar, but good to get him back. Blaine Bradford, number one safety in the country, another top 10 recruit in the on-3 rankings. His brother Jacob is part of that number 3 class in 2025. Love where LSU stands with Blaine Bradford. He loves the plan they have for him as a boundary safety. He's excited to get back on campus. Tristan Keys is a top 10 prospect in the new updated on-3 2026 player rankings. This is his second game visit at LSU of the fall. I believe he was at the win over UCLA earlier in the season. After that visit, he told me he could see himself making plays in LSU's offense. The way the Tigers have produced receivers recently speaks for itself. He always has a great time at LSU. Jabari Brady, Zach Weeks, those are some guys that LSU's obviously in good early position for. Bryson Martinez, another coveted offensive lineman from in-state. You like LSU's position with him early in the cycle. They're going to have a huge list of prospects on campus. It could grow by a blue chipper or two by kickoff in the 2025 class. Over 70 recruits expected, most of them guys that could really go to school anywhere they want, Josh.
All right, LSU fans, talk to Steve and I. Give us your score prediction. How many points is LSU going to win by on Saturday? Let us know. Comment section below. Also, coming out of the weekend, good news coming for Bryce Underwood and Jakeem Stewart. What do you guys think? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, let's head to South Bend. We're going to talk some Notre Dame recruiting as the Irish take on the Seminoles on Saturday night, and they are hosting some key targets. Starting with linebacker Madden Ferriamo, this recruitment is coming down to the wire. Steve, how do you read it?
Well, I still have Notre Dame in front. Certainly you keep an eye on local USC. There was some time in the summer or maybe even early fall where the Trojans were starting to regain momentum, but this will be a second game visit to Notre Dame of the season. He was at the win over Louisville, been to South Bend numerous times in his process. He is arguably the top player on their board, regardless of position this cycle. They're recruiting him as such, and the intel still favors the Irish while keeping an eye on USC.
All right, now linebacker, we're going to talk about some flip targets in a minute, but linebacker Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng is coming off yet another visit to Ann Arbor. Does Michigan have the momentum, at least heading into this weekend?
I believe so, and he's going to visit Texas the weekend of the 23rd. Also saw Colorado earlier this fall. This is not a slam dunk for Notre Dame. Obviously, his great interest in the Irish, been there several times. His brother, Jeremiah Owusu, won the Buckus Award, played on a playoff team at Notre Dame. But I think right now, Michigan is the program that you're watching with Nathaniel Owusu Boateng. And I think Notre Dame is the team you're watching right now with Madden Faremo. We'll see how the weekend goes.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into these flip targets and start with Derek Meadow. This one's interesting because Derek Meadows from the state of Michigan, playing his high school senior year in Las Vegas, committed to LSU after taking trips to Bama and LSU and just feeling the SEC, wanted to go play in the SEC. But now, as we inch closer to signing day, Derek Meadows was at Michigan last weekend. He's expected to be Notre Dame this weekend. Do you think that maybe Derek is leaning closer to staying home to play his college football?
You know, obviously it's fluid here down the stretch. He was at Michigan last weekend. If Michigan's able to pull off the home run and flip Bryce Underwood, I think you really look at Michigan at that point with Derek Meadows. Notre Dame's a place he's been several times. It's a fit for him on and off the field. Similar to Madden Faremo, he was a guy that Notre Dame identified early as one of their most coveted overall targets in the class. He's felt that love from the Irish. When he committed to LSU, Notre Dame has not stopped recruiting him. They've been out to Bishop Gorman to see him. Now they're getting him back on campus. I think it would look promising for Notre Dame to make a move with Derek Meadows this weekend, but he could also stick with the Tigers. So again, this is a recruitment that's fluid.
All right. Now, the Vultures have been circling the classes of Florida State and Florida, and now Jalen Wiggins, who's one of the top D linemen committed to the Florida Gators, is now taking a trip to Notre Dame. Could he be the next big piece to fall out of that Florida commitment class?
Well, I think Notre Dame has really been trending up for Jalen Wiggins over the last couple months. He's a guy that really values what Notre Dame brings to the table off the field. Stanford was a program that at one point was really pushing for him. He's been committed to Florida for a long time, but still visited Florida State several times after that. He's kept some schools warm here, but Notre Dame has a big opportunity this weekend playing the Seminoles to show Jalen Wiggins his potential at a program like theirs. And coming into the weekend, I'm keeping a close eye on that one because I could see Notre Dame making a major move.
Yeah, it's interesting because Jalen Wiggins committed to the Florida Gators, but he's from the city of Tallahassee. So coming up for this Notre Dame game, there's some layers to this. So watch Jalen Wiggins and Notre Dame coming out of this one. And Irish fans, talk to Steve and I. How are you feeling? Big recruiting weekend, some major flip targets on campus. Let us know. Comment section below. All right, let's head out to Knoxville, Steve. We're going to talk some Tennessee volunteer recruiting because Tennessee, they have the 8th ranked class in America, but they're looking for more. It's been kind of quiet since they landed David Sanders Jr. at the end of the summer, but Tennessee has they're cooking toward the end of this cycle, and they want to add a couple more key pieces, mainly a defensive lineman, a running back, and a linebacker. And there's 3 major names that we're going to talk about. Let's start with defensive lineman Isaiah Campbell. He is, no longer fresh off that decommitment from Clemson. It's been about a month now. What's been going on with Isaiah Campbell's recruitment?
Well, took his official visit for Tennessee's win over Alabama. And him and his family just love the way that they've developed the defensive line under Coach Heupel, Coach Garner and company. Coach Garner's got one of the most distinguished track records at the position in his career. The way Tennessee's playing, the culture in the locker room, it's an environment that he could see himself in. The reason why I believe he decommitted from Clemson is so he could take visits and see what else is out there. I think Tennessee is trending heavy for him. There's still dialogue with Clemson. He's got an upcoming official visit to North Carolina next weekend. The Tar Heels have historically done well with touted prospects in state. Mac Brown, just a salt of the earth guy. Kids have a great time when they go visit North Carolina. But I think it's up to the Tar Heels to change the trajectory of this recruitment because I like where Tennessee stands for one of their top overall remaining targets as they try and push into the top 5 of the On3 recruiting rankings.
Yeah, that'd be a big piece to this class to add at the end. Now, Tennessee's also chasing a couple USC Trojan commitments. Running back Duan Morris, he was on campus over the weekend, and you put in a prediction for him. A couple predictions rolled in for him to flip to Tennessee. The weekend's over. The dust is settled. What's going on with Morris's recruitment?
Well, he'll be back later this month. Tennessee is now considered the heavy favorite to flip him from USC. I think that ultimately he'll be in the class. Josh, I like the way that one is trending.
Tennessee wants to add another linebacker, and they are going back at USC's commit class. This time linebacker Jaden Perlotti, who they nearly flipped the first time from Georgia. Now they're coming back at him again. What's the latest as we get closer and closer to signing day?
Well, Tennessee had him on campus for the win over Kentucky, I believe. They've had him on campus this fall. Look, he was a long time, very early commit to Georgia. At one point, looked like he was close to flipping to Florida State. At another point, looked like it was close. He was going to flip to Auburn. And then certainly there was a time where Tennessee had the momentum. Then USC comes in. They get him flipped, but he's obviously still keeping Tennessee in play. He's had a lot of love for them his entire process. Coach William Inge and company have done a really good job recruiting him. There's an opportunity for him to play day one at Tennessee. I think that excites him as well. And this one seems to be picking up towards Tennessee at the end of the cycle.
Whew. Well, we'll see what happens. I know Tennessee would love to finish with a defensive lineman, a running back, and a linebacker. So Tennessee fans, talk to us. What do you think about Campbell, Morris, and Perlotti? Will they end up being Vols in the end? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, let's talk about a couple big visits that are happening nationally. Now, Byron Baldwin, he headlines a big visit weekend at Indiana, and Byron Baldwin's recruitment has thrown me for a loop. He decommitted from Indiana about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it looked like it was all Colorado. You put a pick in, Chad Simmons put a pick in. Everybody thought Baldwin was trending. He showed up in Boulder for a visit, but what's happened since then, and how has Indiana gotten him back on campus?
Well, Baldwin was at Colorado for his official visit for the win over Baylor shortly after Colorado offered. Colorado wins the game on a Hail Mary. Then they basically have a concert in their locker room after the game to be potentially coached by Deion Sanders and some of those guys with the NFL resumes that they have. He was a heavy lean to Colorado coming out of that visit. Decommitted from Indiana for a reason, because he was going to go to Colorado. But Indiana never went away in this recruitment. He was the top player on their board. Ola Adams is the lead recruiter. He decommitted, but they stayed in touch, and they just kept winning on the field. The Hoosiers are 9-0 now, looking to get to 10-0. It's the best start in program history. They got the defending national champs, Michigan, in town on Saturday. There is a lot of excitement around this program. Baldwin, I think it just timing and logistics also helped Indiana in this recruitment, Josh, because if you remember, his Baltimore St. Francis teammates, they played a game against Center Grove, an Indiana powerhouse, a few weeks ago that allowed him to then visit Indiana the next day for the win over Nebraska. So that started getting things really rolling back towards Indiana. And now heading into this upcoming visit this weekend, I think he's back to being a heavy lean towards Indiana. And Josh, if you look at what the Hoosiers have left on the schedule, when Kurt Signetti did his first appearance as the Indiana's head football coach speaking at a basketball game, he gets on the mic and he said he didn't like the vibe in the room. So he grabs the mic and says, "Purdue sucks." And he ended his speech by saying, and Ohio State and Michigan suck too. And those are the last 3 teams on his schedule right now. So he's got Michigan this week, then they're at Ohio State, then they got Purdue, who's struggling. They definitely look like a shoo-in to win 10 games. They're a 2-touchdown favorite against Michigan this weekend, as Vegas is tired of giving away free money on Indiana. If you bet Indiana and if you bet Curtis Rourke's stats every week, you might be able to retire right now. But I like bet on Indiana landing Byron Baldwin as well.
All right, if I could go more than on my prize picks on Byron Baldwin to Indiana, I would. Let's move on. Let's whip this thing around to Oxford. We're going to talk about maybe the biggest potential flip that nobody's talking about here. 5-star Caleb Cunningham, wide receiver committed to Alabama, is back at Ole Miss for a second weekend in a row as Ole Miss takes on Georgia. It's going to be a huge recruiting weekend at Oxford. It's going to be absolutely electric atmosphere. Is Caleb Cunningham to Ole Miss something that should be on everybody's radar right now?
Third game visit of the season. He was at the opener where they scored 76, was at the win over Oklahoma. Now coming in to watch them play Georgia. And I think he sees an opportunity to make an instant impact in an explosive offense under Lane Kiffin. He said Coach Kiffin knows how to get his playmakers the ball. He talked about what it would mean for his brand to stay in state and play for Ole Miss. So this is one to monitor. I mean, again, he committed to Alabama this summer for a lot of reasons that still hold true. Track record of developing receivers under Jamarcus Shepard, Kalen DeBoer, and what he's been able to do historically as a head coach, and then the Alabama brand in general. But obviously, Ole Miss is a team to watch here at the end.
All right. Do you think he's going to return back to Tuscaloosa? I mean, what's Bama doing to kind of counter this?
Well, he's been to Alabama this fall. Was there for the win over Georgia, I believe, and certainly could always return, and has a lot of love for Alabama. So if he were to flip, it wouldn't be because of something Alabama didn't do. It would just be more because he saw a better opportunity staying in state, playing for the Rebels.
All right. We'll continue to track this one, but I think Caleb Cunningham's recruitment is one that we're going to be talking about continuously over the next 3 weeks. All right, let's head out to Oregon. We got 2 huge visitors on campus. One's from the 2025 class, Lincoln Cure. The other, and Lincoln Cure is committed to Kansas State, so major flip target on campus. The other is On3's #1 quarterback in the 2026 class, Jared Curtis. He decommitted from Georgia about a month ago and has come out and said Oregon is his leader. So he is back in Eugene. How big of a weekend is this for the Ducks?
And they may also host 5-star edge rusher Anthony Jones Jr. in the 2026 class. He was trying to get his logistics lined up yesterday. If not, he could pop up at LSU. But Lincoln Cure, when he committed to Kansas State, Oregon only turned it up for him. Tight end is one of their biggest needs down the stretch as they push for a second straight top 5 recruiting class. And he's been out to Oregon a couple times, spring game, summer visits, official visits, loves the environment out there. Drew Maringer, potential position coach Dan Lanning, those guys have poured a lot into recruiting him. And on this visit, I expect him to meet with some people that do some graphic designing for Nike, some former Oregon football players, because that's something that he has a passion for, that Oregon will try and show him that it's an avenue that no other school can offer in his professional career outside of football. Now, could he flip to Oregon? I mean, certainly he's keeping them warm. He's committed to in-state, Kansas State. They're not doing anything to drop the ball in that recruitment. So it's just going to be up to Oregon to convince him to say, hey, time to spread your wings and fly away from home and ride with the Ducks. And they're going to continue showing him why they have some better resources than Kansas State for some things he's trying to accomplish on the next level. And then Jared Curtis, like you said, like we've reported on Whiparounds in the past, the Ducks are the one to beat. So just continuing to build on that momentum as he goes back through his recruiting process. Former Georgia commit, he's going to be at the Georgia-Tennessee game the following weekend. He's going to be at the Iron Bowl at Alabama, was just at Auburn. So there's quite a few schools in play, but Oregon, their offense, his relationships, his excitement about that program has them in great position. And for him to go out there this weekend, I think it's going to only increase Oregon's advantage moving forward for the most coveted passer in 2026. And that'll do it for today's episode of the Wiltfong Whiparound. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit like and subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel so you're up to date on the best recruiting information that's out there. And we'll be back on Saturday for our recruit reaction show as we break down some of the biggest visits that happen across the country. The Wiltfong Whiparound will return on Monday. Inside Scoop will be available to you on Sunday. We look forward to seeing you on all those platforms.